Have you ever walked out of a party, or maybe just a coffee date with a new acquaintance, and felt this strange, hollow sense of exhaustion? It isn't the kind of tired you get from a long gym session or a hard day at the office. It's a deeper, more existential fatigue, like you've been wearing a costume that was just one size too small for 3 hours straight. You realize that while you were talking to that person, your voice pitched up an octave. You started using their slang, nodding at their opinions, even when you didn't quite agree, and matching their high-energy hand gestures despite being a naturally low-key person. You look in the rearview mirror on the drive home and wonder for just a split second which version of you that was. If that feels familiar, if you spent your life feeling like a human jigsaw piece that magically changes shape to fit into any puzzle, then you might be what psychologists call a high self-monitor, or more colloquially, a social chameleon. Most people think being a chameleon is a sign of being fake or having no backbone, but the psychological reality is far more complex and frankly quite beautiful. It isn't necessarily about deception, it's about a hyper-attunement to the social frequency of the room. Think of your brain like a sophisticated radio receiver. While some people are permanently tuned to one station, your receiver is constantly scanning the FM band, picking up the subtle sub-bass of someone's discomfort or the high treble of their excitement. You aren't changing who you are because you're a liar. Why? You're changing how you present yourself because you have a profound, almost biological need for harmony. You are a master of the social mirror, reflecting back what the world needs to see to keep the gears of interaction grinding smoothly. But where does this come from, and why does it feel so lonely to be the person who can get along with everyone? To understand the social chameleon, we have to look at the concept of self-monitoring, a term coined by psychologist Mark Snyder in the 1970s. Snyder suggested that we all fall somewhere on a spectrum. On one end, you have the low self-monitors. These are the people who are the same at a funeral as they are at a football game. They value congruence, the idea that their internal state must match their external expression at all times. If they are grumpy, the world knows they are grumpy. If they hate the music, they aren't going to pretend to dance. On the other end, you have you. You are the high self-monitor. You treat social situations like a theatrical performance, but not in a manipulative way. You simply view the self as a flexible tool. You have a work self, a family self, a first date self, and a stuck in an elevator with a stranger self. You are a professional at reading the room before you've even taken your coat off. There is a fascinating bit of neuroscience behind this. When a social chameleon enters a room, their prefrontal cortex and their mirror neuron system are essentially running a marathon. Mirror neurons are those incredible brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else doing the same thing. They are the seat of empathy for the chameleon. These neurons are hypersensitive. When you see someone lean back and cross their legs, you find yourself doing it 3 seconds later without a single conscious thought. This is called the chameleon effect in social psychology, and researchers have found that it actually makes people like us more. We are biologically hardwired to trust people who move like we do and speak like we do. It's an ancient survival mechanism. Back on the savannah, if you didn't fit in with the tribe, you were essentially tiger food, so your brain learned that being likable wasn't just a social perk, it was a safety protocol. But let's talk about the cost of that safety. Being a social chameleon is like being a world-class actor who is constantly on tour but has forgotten where their actual home is. And there's a specific kind of identity whiplash that happens when two of your different social circles collide. Have you ever had a birthday party where your rowdy college friends met your conservative coworkers and your quiet family members? For a chameleon, that isn't a celebration, it's a nightmare. It's a total systems failure. Your brain is frantically trying to figure out which frequency to broadcast on, and because you can't be 3 different people at once, you usually end up retreating into a shell or becoming strangely quiet. It's in these moments that the chameleon realizes the inherent fragility of their gift. If you are everything to everyone, are you actually anything to yourself? Often this behavior starts in childhood. Plus, many social chameleons grew up in environments where they had to be emotional detectives. Maybe you had a parent parent with an unpredictable temper, or perhaps you moved schools frequently and had to learn the local social currency fast just to survive the lunchroom. You learned that being easygoing and adaptable was the best way to avoid conflict or rejection. You became a people pleaser not because you are weak, but because you are observant. You notice that the world rewards the person who makes things easy for others. And it's true, the world does reward you. You're likely the person everyone goes to for advice. You're the one who can mediate a fight between two stubborn friends. You are the glue of your social circle because you can speak everyone's language. However, the shadow side of this talent is a phenomenon called autonomy loss. Because you're so busy checking the weather in everyone else's head, you forget to check the weather in your own. Someone asks you where you want to go for dinner, and your brain immediately skips over what you're craving and goes straight to what would make them happy. You become so practiced at suppressing your own preferences that over time, those preferences start to go numb. You might wake up in your late 20s or 30s and realize you don't actually know what your favorite color is, or what kind of music you'd listen to if no one else was in the car. It's as if you've spent so much time building bridges to other people that you forgot to build a house for yourself on your side of the river. There's a famous study involving a group of people being asked to describe themselves. The low self-monitors tended to use internal traits. I am honest. I am a fan of jazz. I am stubborn. But the high self-monitors, the chameleons, tended to describe themselves in terms of roles and relationships. I am a helpful coworker. I am a fun friend. I am a flexible partner. If you feel like your identity is a collection of roles rather than a solid core, I want you to know that there is nothing wrong with you. You haven't lost your soul. You've just developed a highly sophisticated way of navigating a very complex world. The trick to being a healthy chameleon is learning the difference between adapting and disappearing. Adaptation is a skill. Disappearance is a defense mechanism. Think of a real chameleon in the wild. It doesn't change color because it's ashamed of being green. It changes color so it can move through the world safely and effectively. But underneath that shifting skin, it's still the same creature with the same heart and the same needs. You can learn to use your social mimicry as a superpower, using it to make people feel seen, heard, and comfortable without letting it swallow your entire personality. It starts with the 5-second rule of authenticity. Before you agree with an opinion or laugh at a joke that isn't funny, give yourself 5 seconds to ask, does this actually resonate with me? It's also important to find your anchors. Anchors are the people or activities where you don't feel the need to monitor your behavior. Maybe it's that one friend who has seen you at your absolute worst and didn't blink. Maybe it's a hobby, like painting or running, where there is no audience to perform for. These are the spaces where you can let your receiver rest. You don't have to scan the airwaves. You can just be. Cultivating these moments of zero monitoring is how you recharge that deep exhaustion we talked about earlier. It's how you remind your brain that you are a person, not just a social service provider. There is a strange, quiet loneliness in being the person who fits in everywhere. Because if you fit in everywhere, you might feel like you don't truly belong anywhere. Belonging is different from fitting in. Fitting in is about changing yourself to match the environment. Belonging is about being your authentic, messy, sometimes uncomfortable self and being accepted for it. The world needs chameleons. We need people who can bridge gaps and understand diverse perspectives. But you also need to allow yourself the luxury of being difficult or incongruent once in a while. You are allowed to be the person who doesn't laugh. You are allowed to be the one who disagrees. You are allowed to have a frequency that is uniquely, stubbornly, and beautifully your own. So the next time you find yourself mirroring someone's posture or shifting your tone of voice, don't judge yourself. Don't call yourself a fake or a fraud. Instead, take a breath and acknowledge your incredible empathy. Recognize that your brain is doing something highly advanced. It's trying to create a connection. But in that same breath, remember to check in with the person beneath the skin. Ask yourself what you need in that moment. And maybe you're tired of being the fun one. Maybe you're tired of being the strong one. It's okay to let the mask slip. In fact, that's usually when the most genuine connections happen. People don't fall in love with a perfect mirror. They fall in love with the cracks in the glass. I'm curious, do you recognize this in yourself? Do you have that identity whiplash when different groups of friends meet? Or have you found a way to stay grounded while still being the social glue? Let's talk about it in the comments. We're all trying to figure out where the performance ends and the person begins. begins, and sometimes just admitting that you're a chameleon is the first step toward finding your true colors. If this resonated with you, consider sticking around. We dive deep into the quirks of the human mind every week. It's making sense of the things that make us, well, us. Until next time, remember, you don't have to be everything to everyone. Being yourself is more than enough.